Will you seek congressional approval for any further action in Venezuela or the region?
Well, we will seek congressional approval for actions that require congressional approval. But otherwise, they will get congressional notification. And this is not an operation that required congressional approval. In fact, this is an operation akin to what virtually every single president for the last 40 years has conducted. The difference is that when it's Donald Trump, all these Democrats go bonkers.
They can't bring themselves to congratulate the United States military, ask probing questions about the mission itself. I would like to know how bad Maduro really is. Right? I know he's on federal indictment, and I know, certainly he's responsible for the killings of hundreds of thousands of Americans. Well, let's drill down on that, right? What's the poison, right? What particular drug? Is it just cocaine, fentanyl? Is it all the above? What's his process? How did he get all this stuff in here? All this stuff will be sort of laid out in the indictment, but we've seen this enough times from reporters. They could have asked that yesterday in the Sunday shows. What brought you to the decision out of nowhere, seemingly, to just go in and grab him?
And no one asked that question, David. Not one person. What do you expect out of the
prosecution? What do you expect out of the indictment? Those types of things. That to me is the newsworthy line of questioning.
All right, guys, good to see you. I hope you had a great holiday. I know I did. I got some enjoyable time with the family, some little downtime here and there, watching and planning so many of the great stuff that we're going to do in 2026. So happy 2026. I did not have taking out Maduro over the last holiday weekend on my bingo card, but what a spectacular display of military might, precision, coordination. Unbelievable. Tim Walz dropped out today. Congress is back. There's so much to break down. We're going to have a lot to do this, but I want to start. And by the way, the guys from the Media Research Center are here to talk about this because Walz, the coverage of what went down with the Somali fraud is ridiculous. Mandami, they have a new CBS anchor. We're going to talk about that. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the coverage, the Dem hypocrisy, the media coverage of this Venezuela strike. It's unbelievable. This Operation Absolute Resolve was unbelievable. I want to play you a little sound of Chairman Dan Kane, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, on the precision that it took. Take a look.
This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force. And the word integration does not explain the sheer complexity of such a mission. An extraction so precise, it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together in time and place to layer effects for a single purpose, to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise.
All right. It was just, that is so unreal. And we'll continue to talk about that because they're briefing members of Congress today. So we'll bring that down. Plus, obviously, as I mentioned, Waltz out tomorrow, by the way, mark your calendars. Tim Parlatore, he's been on before, but he is not just a great lawyer, but he's a legal advisor to Hegseth. He's going to talk to us about the legal breakdown of this. Plus, there's a big SPAC going on with Dan Crenshaw and Sean Ryan. He's intimately involved in that. We'll talk about that. Before we get to the guys from the Media Research Center, though, we officially launched The Huddle every morning, 8:30 Eastern. Go to my YouTube channel, sign up, go to @the DC Huddle. Just sign up across platforms, Instagram, Twitter. Go to the audio version. Super helpful on that as well. Before I bring them in, though, guys, I switched out my sheets over this weekend. It was a big Berlin Branch Christmas for everybody in the Spicer household. I'm telling you, like, everybody got a pair of sheets. I used my own code, by the way, to get everybody, from my mother-in-law to my mom to my sister, my brother, everybody got Boll and Branch sheets because these things are so soft and amazing. And so far, the reviews from every family member has been like, I love these sheets. I also got a waffle blanket, bed blanket. It is so cool. It's like, it's not just the sheets. They have the towels. Everything about this is amazing. The bedding is unbelievable. The sheets, the pillowcases, it's like soft. It gets better with every wash because I know that now because I've got a few washes into a couple of these. Its softness is just crazy. I'm telling you guys, the sheets, the blanket, you're going to get addicted to Boll and Branch. It was a Boll and Branch Christmas for everyone in my family. You can get 15% off plus free shipping to go to bollandbranch.com/Spicer, code word Spicer. You have to do it just like that though. Boll, BOLLAND, spell it out, branch.com/Spicer. You have to use that URL and then code word Spicer for 15% off and free shipping. By the way, the other cool thing I did over the break, we have a big family gathering the day after, and I brought everybody masa chips and Vandy crisps. I'm not kidding. Everybody was fired up about them. I even brought them on vacation with me. I've got pictures of it to prove it. I brought literally on the plane when I went to a family gathering and then on the plane, a bunch of the masa chips. Everybody loved them too. And it's amazing how when someone has one masa chip, they're in love with them. Same thing with the Vandy crisps. I brought them all out for the whole family. Unbelievable. There are no seed oils. Check this out. This is the back of the package right here. Organic corn, 100% beef fed tallow and sea salt. That's it. Same thing with the chips. 3 ingredients. That's all you get. This is the healthiest snack by far. I love these things. When I was driving, I had a bag with me. I wanted to snack and I wanted to snack healthy. No seed oils, no processed garbage. Outstanding taste. They're great for dipping if you love those. On the chips, try the habanero. Unbelievable. It is so unreal. And the barbecue on the potato chips, best potato chips I've ever had in my life. I can say that without question. Same thing with the chips. You will fall in love with masa chips or the Vandy crisp. If you want to give them a try, go to masachips.com/Sean, SEAN, and use code word Sean. Same thing with Vandy crisps.com, code word Sean, 25% off. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Or click the link in the video description. You can scan the QR code. They are also available nationwide now at Sprout Supermarket. Get the variety pack because I'm telling you, everybody in your family will love a different flavor. Without further ado, let me bring in the gentleman from the Media Research Center, Tim Graham, the executive editor of Newsbuster, and the president of the Media Research Center, David Bozell. David, Tim, welcome back. Happy New Year. Great to see you both.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Don't you love, I was like, can I just get one final weekend of I was literally just trying to organize and clean. I was like, and the next thing you know, boom, I wake up and here we go. Maduro. And this is your business. So I'm sure you guys were really excited about spending your final weekend monitoring them.
I thought the president might golf last weekend before coming back to D.C. No, we're going to go capture narco terrorists in Italy.
I know. I was like, dude, you could have come back to D.C. and done that, but you had to do it, right? And then we all had to watch how the media covered it. But that's a great place to jump off on because yesterday I felt bad. You talk about like a final weekend. These NBC, ABC, CBS hosts of these talk shows on the Sundays, like. When Marco Rubio got announced that he was going out, I'm like, is that a fair way to start off 2026, him going out and schooling them? Let me just start it off by playing you him on George Stephanopoulos and get your reaction. Take a look.
He said the United States is going to run Venezuela. Under what legal authority?
Well, first of all, what's going to happen here is that we have a quarantine on their oil. That means their economy will not be able to move forward until the conditions that are in the national interest of the United States and the interest of the Venezuelan people are met. And that's what we intend to do. So that leverage remains. That leverage is ongoing. And we expect that it's going to lead to results here. We're hopeful that it does. Positive results for the people of Venezuela, but ultimately, most importantly for us, in the national interest of the United States. We will no longer have, hopefully, as we move forward here, we'll set the conditions so that we no longer have in our hemisphere a Venezuela that's the crossroads for many of our adversaries around the world, including Iran and Hezbollah, is no longer sending us drug gangs, is no longer sending us drug boats, is no longer a narco trafficking paradise for all those drugs coming out of Colombia to go in through the Caribbean and towards the United States. And obviously, we want a better future for the people of Venezuela. We want them to have an oil industry where the wealth goes to the people, not to a handful of corrupt individuals and stolen by pirates all over the world. That's what we're working towards, and we intend to use the leverage we have to help achieve that.
Let me ask the question again. What is the legal authority for the United States to be running Venezuela?
Well, I explained to you what our goals are and how we're going to use the leverage to make it happen. As far as what our legal authority is on the quarantine, I'm very simple. We have court orders. These are sanctioned boats, and we get orders from courts to go after and seize these sanctions. So I don't know, is a court not a legal authority?
So is the United States running Venezuela right now?
Well, I've explained once again, I'll do it one more time. What we are running is the direction that this is going to move moving forward. And that is, we have leverage. This leverage we are using and we intend to use. We started using already. You can see where they are running out of storage capacity. In a few weeks, they're going to have to start pumping oil unless they make changes. And that leverage that we have with the armada of boats that are currently positioned allow us to seize any sanctioned boats coming into or out of Venezuela, loaded with oil or on its way in to pick up oil, and we can pick and choose which ones we go after. We have court orders for each one. That will continue to be in place until the people who have control over the levers of power in that country make changes that are not just in the interest of the people of Venezuela, but are in the interest of the United States and the things that we care about. That's what we intend to do. The legal authority is the court orders that we have.
When the president was asked yesterday who will be running Venezuela, he said it was you. He said it was the defense secretary. He said it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Are you running Venezuela right now?
George, I've explained again that the leverage that we have here is the leverage of the quarantine. So that is a Department of War operation, conducting, in some cases, law enforcement functions with the Coast Guard on the seizure of these boats. I'm obviously very intricately involved in these policies. And by the way, very intricately involved in moving forward and what we hope to see some of these changes being addressed. Unfortunately, the person that was there before, who was not the legitimate president of the country, was someone we could not work with, was someone that we could not. He had already suckered the Biden administration a couple of years ago on a deal he didn't keep. And this is someone we simply couldn't work with. We are hopeful that there are people in place now. We're going to find out. The proof will be in what they do or fail to do, that will start making some of these changes that will ultimately lead to a Venezuela that looks substantially and dramatically different from what's been in place for 15 years. But our number one objective is America. We care about Venezuela. We want it to do well moving forward. But our number one objective here is America. No more drugs, no more trained at agua gangs coming our direction, and no more an area of the country in our hemisphere that becomes a crossroads for every single adversary we have around the world. Hezbollah, Iran, all of them have turned it into their playground. That can't and will not continue under this administration.
So, David, do you think that George Stephanopoulos just didn't like the answer that he was getting, or that he's pissed that Trump did it?
Oh, well, Sean, I think he's trying to bait Secretary Rubio into an "I'm in charge" headline, and into an "I'm in charge" quote, so that that could get blasted across the multiverse, as it were. Listen, George's commentary and line of questioning kind of follows along with all the other networks, right? I call it the "yeah, but" tone and tenor of coverage, right? Nothing matters before the but. So just a couple of things. Yeah, you got Maduro, but what about his underlings? What about the other 5 guys that you didn't get? Yeah, you got yeah, he was under indictment, but you didn't tell Chuck Schumer first. You didn't tell the UN first. Yeah, you got Maduro, but the hot new New York City mayor, he's really mad that you didn't tell him first. Yeah, you got Maduro. This was the CBS one last night. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, you got Maduro, but the prison you put him in is very dirty. How dare you? I mean, I don't remember anybody in the networks complaining about prison conditions for J6ers. Never once. But Maduro gets sent to a federal compound in New York City, and CBS is out there talking about how dirty it is and how the food's not so great. So it's all this yeah, but with the networks since the capture.
Tim Graham, the thing to go off what David's saying, the thing that I always find fascinating is every time there's anything, whether it's economics, trade policy, whatever, they trot out so-called experts who, when you actually look at their track record, it sucks and they're wrong, right? And they don't understand Trump or they hate Trump or whatever. Marco Rubio was also out on another show, and he talked about these people and what they think. And let me just say, because it was so poignant, he talked about how it was clown hour. Take a look.
Number one, most of the experts that people have on television, I watch these experts and it's clown hour. Okay, these are people that have focused their entire career on the Middle East or some other part of the world because that's where all the action was. Very few of them know anything about Venezuela or the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela looks nothing like Libya. It looks nothing like Iraq. It looks nothing like Afghanistan. It looks nothing like the Middle East other than the Iranian agents that are running through there plotting against America.
So Tim, the point that Marco Rubio is making is you guys put people on television that have no understanding or expertise in Venezuela. You're trying to make comparisons to Iraq or somewhere else. And yet that's who you want the American people to be getting their information from, as opposed to a guy who's the Secretary of State, who as a senator was intimately involved in Central and South America, telling you what matters. And yet I just find this so funny how over and over again, when we talk about economic policy, you look at a bunch of economists that get trotted out that have gotten it all wrong, and no one ever says anything. You look at these foreign policy experts that have, whether it's China or the Middle East or even South America, have talked about maintaining failed policies that have gotten us nowhere. And that's who they counter them with, as David was saying.
Yeah, what makes an expert that they want to use? And the obvious answer is whoever echoes the talking point they want made. And that talking point is generally a Democrat talking point, And so, as David suggested, they're coming at them from several different directions. This was reckless. You shouldn't have done this. Or you didn't do enough. You didn't seize enough people. You should have seized 5 people instead of 1. It doesn't matter which direction it comes from. And then, yes, the supreme irony of all of this, with Stephanopoulos yelling about legal authority, is the double standard between the parties. How did George Stephanopoulos feel when Clinton bombed in the former Yugoslavia to get everybody's mind off the impeachment over Monica Lewinsky? What did George Stephanopoulos say about that? I guess we need to go look that up. Tim Kaine was all over radio and TV screaming about how this invasion or this action was illegal. What did Tim Kaine say when Obama took out Osama, went into Pakistan? Was Pakistan notified? Was there a vote of Congress? Tim Kaine thought that was the greatest thing ever. George Stephanopoulos over at ABC, Barbara Walters was saying Obama's action was almost biblical. That's what we get. The spin is all politics all the time.
David, you brought up CBS, and I don't know why at some point Bari Weiss just doesn't replace Margaret Brennan, because it's an embarrassment. But the military precision of this operation is, I believe, as a War College graduate, going to go down as something that future military operators study significantly. The time, the depth, the precision, the jointness was textbook. I mean, literally, I think people would. And then this is how Margaret Brennan reacted, though, when Rubio went on her show. Take a look.
He's still in place. The defense minister, who has deep ties to Russia, $15 million price on his head, he is still in place. I'm confused. Are they still wanted by the United States? Why didn't you arrest them if you are taking out the narco-terrorist regime?
You're confused? I don't know why that's confusing to you.
They're still in power.
It's very simple. You're not going to go in and wrap up. But you can't go. You're going to go in and suck up 5 people. They're already complaining about this one operation. Imagine the howls we would have from everybody else if we actually had to go and stay there 4 days to capture 4 other people. We got the top priority. The number 1 person on the list was the guy who claimed to be the president of the country that he was not. And he was arrested along with his wife, who was also indicted. And that was a pretty sophisticated and frankly complicated operation.
It was.
It is not easy to land helicopters in the middle of the largest military base in the country. The guy lived on a military base. Land within 3 minutes, kick down his door, grab him, put him in handcuffs, read him his rights, put him in a helicopter, and leave the country without losing any American or any American assets. That's not an easy mission. And you're asking me, why didn't we do that in 5 other places at the same time? I mean, that's absurd. I do think this is one of the most, daring, complicated, sophisticated missions this country has carried out in a very long time. Tremendous credit to the U.S. military personnel who did it. It was unbelievable, and tremendous success. And today, an indicted drug trafficker who was not the legitimate president of Venezuela, who we don't recognize, the Biden administration didn't recognize, 60-something countries don't recognize, the European Union doesn't recognize, and many countries in Latin America don't recognize. He was a indicted drug trafficker. He was arrested. His wife was arrested, also
but the
indicted, and they are now
others who are also indicted are still
system of courts.
The others who are also indicted are still in place. So,
David. This goes back to what you're saying. But the others, why didn't you get the others? Why didn't you get a snack on the way out of his house? Why did you leave all of those cookies that had just been baked? I mean,
Right. Why didn't you leave your cookies for Santa Claus after getting Maduro out of the house, out of a military compound? Kudos to the Secretary Rubio. I mean, that was an exquisite answer. He hit it out of the park. I think he was stunned at the line of questioning. Yeah, she is confused. Not to get too personal about this, but boy, oh boy, that's the most accurate thing she said in the whole deal right there, is that she's confused. This idea, again, it's just this yeah, but, right? Okay, she said it right as Rubio's answering. It was good. It was great. But you didn't get the 4 or 5 other guys. And it's a silly line of questioning, particularly in the moment within 24 hours, maybe 18 hours of one of the most precise military exercises this country has undertaken in quite some time. It's going to be studied in armed services schools for years. And she just can't leave this. She can't give the administration proper credit, right? Ask the secretary, say, how the hell did you pull that off, right? And allow that to be the story. It's just got to drill into line of questioning. She's the only one of the Sunday shows that even broached the subject. What about the other guys? So I don't know where she got that from, other than, to Tim's point, probably a blue sky brigade thread that they just can't stop complaining anytime Trump does something good. So that's probably where she found this. Found the line of questioning was there. So it's a silly thread of questioning. And it's a silly. It's confusing. to Secretary Rubio's point, but I'm glad he batted it away with a little level of sarcasm that was necessary.
Tim, the thing that I thought was odd is again, to dissect this a little, was the approach, right? For her to say, "I'm confused," like that again, maybe a lot of people are like, Sean, you're getting in the weeds on this, but why not just ask him the question? Secretary Rubio, there's 5 people that you guys have bounties on. What was your thinking in prioritizing these? Or are you going back for the other 4? To say I'm confused really, I think, illustrates so many of these folks who host these shows where they are confused. They don't get it. And it admits something that I thought they would never say the quiet part out loud.
And he jumped on it, as you noticed. Oh, you're confused? I mean, it was part of how he handled that. But yes, this whole round, the other thing that just drives me nuts is them all saying, what's the legal basis? What's the legal authority? This is an illegal invasion. NPR was letting Tim Kaine run all over with this, and nobody seems to ask the question. This isn't what the Democrats asked when Clinton or Obama did it, and obviously one of the precedents for this was under George H.W. Bush, them seizing Noriega in Panama.
Right.
And so before the invasion in Panama, they tried to say, well, he's worthless, he's weak, he's not doing anything, right? This is also the same thing they took with Trump and Maduro. Well, Maduro's not afraid of Trump. Trump's never going to get Maduro. Trump's like Maduro or whatever, and now Chris Murphy's been on both sides of this thing,
Yeah.
And they're not pointing out any of the Democrat hypocrisy, which tells you all of these news networks are run by a bunch of Democrats, So I've got 1989, Sean, CBS first started saying Bush is erasing his old image of being timid, but now he's showing signs of being reckless. You can't win with these people.
Right. Well, the
Sean, the other thing CBS pointed out was the federal agents were taking advantage of the photo op. Now, it is New York City. We have the freedom of the press. To Tim's point, you can't win. What would you have preferred? That the federal government bar the press from taking that photo of Maduro getting off the plane and being perp-walked into the prison? Because that would have been the complaint. You barred the press access, and so you just can't win with these guys. The guards are doing nothing more than walking a prisoner into prison.
But also, hold on. What I think is also being missed in this discussion, gentlemen, is we got a bad guy.
Right.
Why is no one being asked, hey, so wait, do you actually support leaving him in power? Because he's a bad guy. I've listened to every excuse. To your point about no one could win, right? I'm like, so they all called for it. I'll play you a couple of those clips in a second, right? That's number one. Number two, no one's being asked, do you support leaving him in, right? It's the Dems are getting away with the process. We don't like how it went down not whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea, right? And this goes, I mean, like, David, you keep bringing this up. I want to play you another, I feel like we're doing the Marco Rubio show here, but this is him about congressional approval. Take a look.
This was not an action that required congressional approval. In fact, it couldn't require congressional approval because this was not an invasion. This is not an extended military operation. This is a very precise operation that involved a couple of hours of action. It was a very delicate operation, too. It was one that required all these conditions to be in place at the right time in the right place. You couldn't afford leaks. We couldn't afford anything out there that would have endangered the mission and gotten people killed or killed off the mission and the optionality. We didn't even know if the mission was going to happen. How can you notify something you're not even sure if it can happen? Because in order for it to happen, you needed to have weather conditions in place. He needed to be at the right place at the right time. We needed to have forces prepared to go. There were a lot of factors in place. It was a trigger-based operation. But you can't notify that, number one, because you don't even know if it's going to happen, if those conditions will ever align. And number two, you can't risk it being disclosed. But this was not an attack on Venezuela. This was a law enforcement function to capture an indicted drug trafficker. And of course, we needed the Department of War to support it because they do have anti-aircraft missiles that could shoot down those helicopters.
But will you?
We had to take down radars. We had to take down those anti-air elements on the way in and on the way out, and that's what this was limited to.
But will you seek congressional approval for any further action in Venezuela or the region?
Well, we will seek congressional approval for actions that require congressional approval, but otherwise they will get congressional notification. And this is not an operation that required congressional approval. In fact, this is an operation akin to what virtually every single president for the last 40 years has conducted. The difference is that when it's Donald Trump, all these Democrats go bonkers.
All right. So, David, this goes back to the and but, right? That first it's you didn't notify him. He explains it. And let's to be honest, what he just said, if you stop and think about it, that we didn't invade anyone. There's no declaration of war. We're not actually, there's no boots on the ground. To me, number one, the question was stupid from the outset because it doesn't even make sense. Secondly, the way Rubio describes this, we went in to get a bad guy. We were supported by the Department of War. They helped us. We got the bad guy. We got out. There's no residual force left there. So it's a stupid question. And then she almost dismisses the question by saying, okay, but how about going forward? There's, this is to your point. It's never good enough. He answers the question and then she goes, well, what about if it rains on Tuesday and we had a lunch reservation and you weren't able to make the reservation, but you want to do another attack?
Yeah, Stephanopoulos said the same thing. You should have told the Gang of Eight being the 4 congressional leaders and the 4 leaders of the intel committees from both parties. And then Rubio explained to Stephanopoulos much the same thing that he explained to Margaret Brennan. And Stephanopoulos says, oh, but the Gang of Eight never leaks. Well,
but also...
That's a huge stretch. That's a
huge
stretch.
By the way, how does he know that unless they probably leaked to him? I mean, that's what I thought was so funny.
Right. It was just again. It's just they just can't bring themselves to congratulate the United States military. Ask probing questions about the mission itself. I would like to know how bad Maduro really is. Right? I know he's on federal indictment, and I know, certainly he's responsible for the killings of hundreds of thousands of Americans. Well, let's drill down on that, right? What's the poison, right? What particular drug? Is it just cocaine, fentanyl? Is it all the above? What's his process? How did he get all this stuff in here? All this stuff will be sort of laid out in the indictment, but we've seen this enough times from reporters. They could have asked that yesterday in the Sunday shows. What brought you to the decision out of nowhere, seemingly, to just go in and grab him? And
no one asked that question, David. Not one person. What do you expect out of the prosecution?
What do you expect out of the indictment? Those types of things. That to me is the newsworthy line of questioning, not the but you didn't tell Chuck Schumer. And Mondami. It's just silly, and it's one of the reasons why the ratings continue to collapse.
But I'm so glad you said that, David, because you know what? That's the one question I wanted to know. Why now? What was it, right? That was the one thing I wanted to know. And not one of those clowns asked the question. I truly want to know, what was the rationale for this? Now, I understand, to Rubio's point, by the way, if you actually dig into some of the reporting, they wanted to go 5 days earlier. There were certain weather conditions that prevented that from happening. in terms of operational security. But I'm with you, David. I was like, the question I really wanted to know is like, what was the impetus for going now? Why not 2 months ago? Why not in a month from now? Was it that, you'd given Maduro 8 chances? And not one person asked the question that both you and I just came up with, which, because they don't, it's almost like
well, Sean, you could tell Rubio's trying to answer it to a different question, because he wants to give the American people what he instinctively knows what we would like to hear is the decision to go, and whether it's weather and the personnel and what have you. I mean, the fact that we had a CIA embed in there is remarkable to me.
Yeah, that knew everything.
Glossed over, like, oh yeah, that's cute. We had somebody in there for the last 6 months. I mean, I don't need to know the guy's name, but I mean, how did we do that? How did we pull that off? Not even curious about how we pulled that off, right? That's the stuff that is interesting television, is interesting reporting. Not this, is Mamdani is upset that you didn't tell him that there was a convoy of SUVs coming into the city. Okay, great, thank you. I mean, that's
right.
But Sean, there's also the issue of competence, right? This obviously demonstrates dramatic competence. If we compare it to Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan, Biden's droning innocent people after he fumbled the pullout from Afghanistan. Yeah. And we're old enough to remember, maybe David isn't, Jimmy Carter's Desert One fiasco in 1980. That was not competence. And so this was something, whether you don't necessarily say the commander-in-chief had all the competence, but he approved this plan. The competence was remarkable. And that's all lost in the but.
Yeah, think about that. That contrast that you're bringing up, Tim Graham, the failed withdrawal out of Afghanistan, which Biden had been talking about forever, and this plan that was unbelievable, the level of detail. They were practicing in a model, safe home that was compound that was exactly like his so that they could get it right. But I was blown away by that. But I want to get to the Dem reaction, guys. Before I do that, though, I got to ask you guys both, because this is your world. So we mentioned Stephanopoulos. You got Kristen Welker at NBC, and then Margaret Brennan at CBS. If you had to rank them from worst to really bad, like 1 being the absolute worst and 3 being just bad, David, I'll give you the first shot.
I'm punting that to Tim.
Tim, how would you, who's the worst of all 3?
It's Stephanopoulos. I mean, come on. The guy is so DNC operative. James Carville's in my earpiece. I mean, and he's always been that way. And right now, ABC is the worst of all the 3 of them on the daily and nightly basis. They're the ones that were completely pro-Biden at all times, and they're completely anti-Trump at all times. So whether it's the evening news, the morning news, the Sunday shows, ABC's the worst.
I think Margaret Brennan is the second, because it really is whatever. And then Welker, I just don't think has the chops. I mean, I don't mean to be mean about this, but the way that she asks questions, it's almost like someone's scripted them out and she's just reciting them, but she's actually not paying attention to what the guest says.
I mean, no matter what, all 3 of them, and this goes for most of the network coverage, and this happened with Minneapolis too, with the fraud stuff. To the media, nothing matters before the but. And these clips are all clear illustrations of that. Nothing matters to them before the but.
So let's talk about the Dem reaction. And I got to put it in 2 kind of camps, I think. The first one is like Kamala Harris. She put out, Donald Trump's actions in Venezuela do not make America safer, stronger, or more affordable. That Maduro is brutal, illegitimate dictator does not change the fact, blah, blah, blah. Wait, hold on a second. So it doesn't matter that he's a brutal dictator. It doesn't make us safer or stronger, which I would argue it does. These guys were in our southern hemisphere. They're geopolitically aligned with China and Russia. They're funding Cuba. And you don't think, I looked at that and said, are you really putting out a statement that sides you, Tim Graham, with narco-terrorists?
Look, they see it as siding with the Democrats. It's always skepticism no matter which direction it goes. And so, yes, it's always got to be something was wrong. And a lot of it's projecting about how it's all going to go wrong. So we've already seen the network saying, well, them removing Maduro is going to ruin the legal case. It's just like we took out General Soleimani. Well, this is going to cause World War III. Did that happen? But this is what they do. When we took out the Iranian nuclear program, they were all like, well, no, you didn't really get it. It's always their job to be negative. We find it on a monthly basis, 92%, 90% negative about Trump. And the way you do that is everything he's doing is always wrong and it's not going to work out.
All right, I wanted to get to the Dem hypocrisy because whether it was Chris Murphy of Connecticut or Chuck Schumer, they're all on record saying like Maduro needs to go and he's a bad guy, and then Trump did it and they embarrassed themselves. But I think I want to make sure we have time to talk about Tim Walz. I want to talk about Mandami a little, and then I want to talk about this new CBS rebranding. And so we only have limited time. Today, Tim Walz says he's not seeking re-election. But what I thought that was interesting about was Nick Shirley, this independent journalist, exposes this fraud. And I want you to tell me where I'm missing this. He exposes this fraud. And there's no question about it. Daycare center after daycare center, no kids, but tons of money, all publicly documented. The media don't cover it. Tim Walz attacks Nick Shirley and says he's a crazy right-wing YouTuber. And yet we actually got the intended result today. Tim Walz saying, I'm not running for re-election. I found that shocking because, David, I thought the media really was doing everything it could to make sure that this scandal did not get the light of day.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we've documented CBS has done a decent job covering this since way back early December. So since before Shirley, none of the other networks have done a decent job. CBS had at least made an attempt. But again, it's the but, right? That was one of them. Yes, there is fraud, but Tim Walz is on top of it. He's got this. Yeah, he's been investigating this for years. But there's more to those. I mean, there's fraud. Yes, Shirley's report is accurate, but he's just a YouTuber. Yes, the report is accurate, but he's probably a white supremacist. Yes, there's fraud, but the FBI has already prosecuted some people, so let's just move on. Yes, there's fraud. This was a real butte. Yes, there's fraud, but the government of Minnesota doesn't have the resources to do anything about it. I mean, that was like one of the lines of trains of thought from a lot of people in the media. Let's give Minnesota more money to try to, I guess, do their own prosecutions, their own investigations. So that was one of the big defenses by the press of Tim Walz, was that he had been on top of this and he was going to continue to be on top of this, and that's why he was favored to win re-election. Oops. Obviously something in his internals over the last 6-7 days. And look, when you're up against a kid who's got 130 million views on just one platform, I mean, that's just on the X, right? I mean, God knows how many views he's got on TikTok and Instagram and all sorts of other places. It's no surprise that I'm sure Walz looked at his internals and said, "There's no way I can pull myself out of this," and prosecute the Somali fraudsters at the same time. So he was up against it, and I would be very curious about the coverage about Walz now. Right? Was he a hero? Did he just give it the old college try and just couldn't pull it off? Be very, very curious. I'm sure Tim knows what's coming.
Tim, the thing that's interesting, we mentioned the three networks, right? CBS, ABC, CBS. I get you guys track all this, at least covered it a little. When CNN finally came around to covering it, they didn't cover the issue. They attacked Nick Shirley.
It's classic, and that is here's what CNN's message is. You unprofessional people, you demonstrate you're unprofessional by the story you selected. Those of us who are professional know this is a story that makes Democrats look bad, so we are not doing it. If you pick it up, you must be some sort of crazy white supremacist. We all know what they're basically doing here, which is saying, go away, stop talking. We don't want anybody talking about this. We don't want this going viral on the social media. It's the whole problem. And so, yes, it's a massive fraud. And Tim Walz claimed he did something about it, which was false. Even the PolitiFact called it false because it's the U.S. attorneys in the Twin Cities that have prosecuted this fraud. And they've prosecuted this fraud without much national media attention. There really hasn't been much. And even the local, like the Star Tribune newspaper, not doing a great job, not distinguishing themselves on this story because they're a bunch of Democrat hacks. This is probably a story we should have made a bigger deal out of when Walz was selected to be the vice presidential nominee. It's too bad we didn't.
Right, but here's the question. I think you're touching on what I wanted to go to, which is how do you not now ask Kamala Harris, this is the person that you vetted to be vice president of the United States, and he can't even run for his own reelection because of the degree of fraud in his own state. How did you not? And by the way, to your point earlier, there was some discussion. They knew this.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yes. Well, I would hope so. I mean, if your Oppo research on yourself doesn't reveal this, then you're not very good at Oppo research. So I'm sure Kamala knew.
Yeah. State employees went on X and said, "We told her."
Right.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Yep. And also, but here's the question. I don't believe this is limited to Minnesota. I don't think there's like a handful of Somalis in Minnesota that came up with this $1 billion scheme. Right. I believe that once the question is how much more are we going to look into this, or is it because Tim Walz has resigned, we stopped? But I have a feeling that if we start pulling up a few rocks, we're going to find out that this is not limited to the Twin Cities.
Well, I mean, House GAO did its own sort of seed investigation with the Obamacare subsidies. They intentionally created fake people to see if they could get subsidized. This is why they're subsidized. We're allowed to expire. Nobody knows how many people are on them, and so yes, there's fraud up and down the government. That's essentially what Doge's greatest contribution to our discourse is to reveal all this layer and layer of fraud, or at least start to peel back the onion and get people curious, get people like Nick Shirley curious.
Yeah.
That's Nick Shirley's report is all a downstream effect of Doge, right?
But also, why is no one else? This wasn't like this guy's just a curious guy, right?
Yeah.
Why isn't anyone else saying, gosh, doesn't it make sense that there's millions of dollars going to these childcare centers that are in warehouses in which there's 10 childcare centers and no children and millions of dollars? What doesn't add up here? Like, why is it that Nick Shirley's the only guy that can do this and not someone with like the Washington Post, the New York Times, who have all of these resources, the Star Tribune? Where are they asking these questions? Gosh, doesn't it seem weird you get millions of dollars to 10 childcare centers in one warehouse with no kids? Maybe that's something we should look into.
But the problem is, look, you're not going to win a broadcast Emmy for this. You're not going to win a Pulitzer Prize for this. We understand. You win a Pulitzer Prize for going after the Republicans.
Yeah.
That's the heroic action, and that's the whole fraud of the all the pompous talk from George Clooney and others about how CBS is going down now because CBS actually might take a balanced approach to deciding what news is. When Tony DeCopel, the new anchor, comes on and says, we're going to hold all sides accountable, that's what they're saying is the ruination of CBS News. That's not the way it's supposed to operate.
I want to play for people what you just mentioned. I was going to get to this in a second, but Tony DeCopel is the new evening anchor at CBS. But just to be clear, he was the previous morning anchor with Gayle King in the morning. And this is the video that he put out that Tim is referencing. Take a listen.
On too many stories, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American. Or we put too much weight in the analysis of academics or elites and not enough on you. And I know this because at certain points, I have been you. I have felt this way too. I felt like what I was seeing and hearing on the news didn't reflect what I was seeing and hearing in my own life, and that the most urgent questions simply weren't being asked.
David, look, I feel like we're being gaslit. He's acting like he was some passerby on the New York subway. He was the anchor of the morning news. I was you. Are you kidding me? That what makes my blood boil. You were never me. You were never me, Tony. You don't know what it's like. You were the problem. And for them to go out and claim I was you. I know what it's like, as if he wasn't sitting there on the couch behind the table next to Gayle King telling us what academics and elitists thought and ignoring us. Like, this is crazy. The idea that he had the chutzpah to do that is that, to me, is the bigger story.
Yeah, well, him, Gayle King, Nate Burleson, they led CBS Mornings into the toilet. I mean, because of all of what he just described, that he didn't ask the right questions, that he wasn't talking to us, whoever us may be. I guess I'll be Christian charitable, right? Let's assume that message is genuine. Let's maybe assume that he was, working one hand tied behind his back in the mornings, and now this will be his own independent deal, and maybe he'll turn CBS Evening News around. Who knows? As far as I'm concerned, it still has the stain of Dan Rather faking National Guard documents about George W. Bush in 2004. When your lead anchor is fired not 20 years ago, it carries with it a stigma. So, look, I hope you can't do much worse than some of your predecessors, and you really have nowhere to go but up, right? So, I would want. What I'm looking in terms of CBS rebrand and where that show goes, man, I think the world's their oyster in terms of making that more multimedia. If it's just going to be the same, like, here's the top stories for 8 minutes, and then here's some lifestyle stuff for 8 minutes, and the stocks and weather, et cetera, it's just going to be it's just going to be boring. And I think there's a terrific opportunity to do something like a Pat McAfee style operation at any one of these networks, and just throw a Hail Mary and try to do something different. If I were Tony, that's what I'd be thinking about doing.
I get why they're doing it, but let's just be honest. This is as authentic as Mark Zuckerberg claiming that he somehow cared about censorship after everything that happened at Facebook. So before we end, though, Tim Graham, there was so much that happened at the Mandami inauguration. And again, I feel like this is another example where the media just blew by it. He talked about collectivism over individualism. There's an issue about having where the American flags were displayed. And then there was this whole thing about him doing a Nazi salute that Elon Musk, for making the same gesture, got pilloried for. And I to me, I look at it the same way Waltz with the childcare scandal, where Mandami, all of these things, and everyone on the right is going nuts on Twitter like this is crazy, and no one covers any of it.
Yes, this part of the speech that we all pounced on, conservatives pounced, when he said we're going to replace rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. And we were all like, oh my goodness, how Marxist does that sound? When you looked at the network coverage, it was all warm. It was like, oh, isn't it nice that they have a Muslim immigrant mayor? They see everything through the lens of DEI, and they're soft on socialism. They don't want the Democrats to look extreme. So it was very press secretary type coverage of Mamdani. That's going to change, because he's either going to not be radical enough for the radicals, which is going to be pretty easy for him to mess that up. But he's going to make the Democrats nationally look bad. And that's obviously what the conservative media is going to do, a job of explaining the crazy people he's appointing and what he's going to do.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thanks for kicking off the week with us. I love all the work that you're doing over there at the Media Research Center and Newsbusters. I steal so much material from you guys, and I appreciate all the great analysis that you guys. Thanks for starting the year with us, and I look forward to having you back soon.
Yeah, anytime, buddy. Take it easy.
Thanks.
All right, guys, thanks for being with us. A great show. As I mentioned, Tim Parlatore tomorrow to break down the legal analysis of the strikes in Venezuela, plus the big insight into the Dan Crenshaw, Sean Ryan spat. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night. And remember to join us tomorrow on The Huddle, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on my YouTube channel. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.